Welcome back. I'm glad you could come with me and experience this spiritual journey. Today we're going to paint some rivers, some happy little trees, and some little puppies running around the forest. I find puppies very delightful. My one died last night though, but we won't talk about that. What you want to do first is paint the hills. You want to paint the hills, make sure the hills are very green and beautiful. And it's okay if you do this. And with all the strokes going in, you want to add some blues in this. When you add some blues, that's the river right there. The blue could also be the sky. But the sky is infinite and space is everlasting, and we will never reach any other planet on our solar system because space expands forever. So just do a bit more of these. This is a technique called pointillism. So with pointillism, you just do this. So we're switching techniques midway. It's okay if you switch techniques midway. If you switch techniques midway, you are doing a new artist revolution called not being consistent. And that's okay. Let me paint that little doggy. Little doggy's gonna be a bit yellow. And there he is. There you go. That's it right there. When you're done, you go like this. You crumple it up. And you eat it. Good night.
Welcome back to another episode of After the Storm. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Miles.
In this episode, we're retro-themed, exploring the arts, fashion, and history of the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We'll feature recreations of outrageous movie classics to high school stories from our own teachers. You'll experience it all on After the Storm.
Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
The ages of fashion, music, and free expression. I'm a huge music fan. One of my favorite bands from that era is Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, I love Fleetwood Mac. They were on the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, right?
Well, they've done a little bit more than just that.
Like what?
Did you know that Fleetwood Mac's Juggernaut album, Rumors, was based on the true inner conflicts of the band? After several of the band members were suffering relationship problems, many of them decided to start affairs with other members of the group. This led to the band almost splitting up, but they wouldn't let their emotions get in the way of their music, and from that, birthed the album Rumors, which has maintained its spot on the Billboard Top 200 for more than 40 years after its initial release.
Wow, that really brought down the mood. Thanks, Miles. Let's brighten it up a bit by talking about another aspect of culture in this era, the ball scene. Let's go to Emily and Jacob, who in this episode reviewed the documentary Paris is Burning, which talks about the ball scene and its influence on our culture.
Ball culture has been around since the 1920s and originated in Harlem, New York during the Harlem Renaissance.
However, it really didn't become mainstream until the late 80s and early 90s, when the award-winning documentary Paris is Burning was released, and when Madonna's hit song Vogue topped the pop charts.
A ball is a gathering of Black and Latino LGBTQ people who would compete in different categories, the categories ranging from butch queen realness to high fashion evening wear.
And in the 1990 documentary, it dives more into ball culture and the lives of various members in the community, like ball mothers, which are mothers who take in lost souls that have nowhere to go and are being outcasted from society for being gay, and so they create their own families.
So one of the mothers from Paris is Burning is Pepper LaBeija.
Has rejection from their mother and father, their family. When they get out in the world, they search. They search for someone to fill that void. I know this for experience because I've had kids come to me and latch hold to me like I'm their mother.
They compete in these balls into categories.
The category is Butch Queen, first time in drags at a ball.
Voguing is not just a pretty dance that's cool and you can do it in your bedroom.
Or
Voguing is fighting through dance. It's a dance fight.
It's basically shame.
Dip, spin, fold, dip, pull, turn it out.
Voguing came from shade because it was a dance that two people did because they didn't like each other. Instead of fighting, you would dance it out on the dance floor and whoever did the better moves was throwing the best shade, basically.
No touching.
So Madonna took up Vogue. She in the 80s created a song called Vogue, and that really made it mainstream. So voguing came from gay people, like from balls. Like that's where she got it from. So basically when that became mainstream, it became more popularized and people really like represented themselves through that too.
Yeah, and then through the media really caught on too with Madonna's song.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is voguing, a form of dance that has its roots in Harlem, a takeoff on runway modeling, which they had plenty of last night as well. Voguing is an attitude, a style. It's a kind of institutionalized showing off, but not without its entertainment value.
You would see so many celebrities, they would hold contests for AIDS benefits, and so there was a lot of voguing happening because of Madonna's Vogue, and the mainstream caught on a lot. I mean, another aspect that they really do explore in Paris is Burning is trans women and trans black women, and it's kind of the whole point of I'm trans and I want to look like a woman to be respected. So you kind of do get into like the perspective of these trans black women and what they went through, and especially trans people of color really in general, because there's also Venus Extravaganza, who is a very famous icon within the ball scene during that time, and we kind of see that she is a lighter Latina and like has green eyes and blonde hair and is very petite, and she's trying to be basically a rich white girl, because in her mind a rich white girl just gets whatever she wants. She has everything. They're all hustlers. They all either are prostitutes or they're sugar babies, and so they kind of just do what they can to survive because they can't get real jobs. They can't go to any and
you really realize the struggle in the documentary when you find out that she was killed, because they would get attacked all the time, especially trans women, and you really see that in this documentary that they don't have easy lives at all, and the ball is the one thing that they have that represents them, is safe for them. So.
That was their safe space in the 80s, especially during the AIDS epidemic also. So that was really important.
I came, I saw, I conquered.
So this has been our review for Paris is Burning. Thank you for watching. Exactly.
Wow, that was informative. Thank you, Jacob and Emily. It was really interesting to check out a vintage flick. While we're on the topic of retro films, we have Amanda here to talk about one of the most cherished horror classics of the 90s and its modern reboot.
On September 6th, one of Stephen King's greatest works released the second movie of its rebooted series, It Chapter 2. Based on the 1986 book, the movie features the motley crew of teenagers from the first film, 27 years later, revisiting their past to defeat the monster that haunted their childhood. The movie was a box office success, but more importantly birthed this picture of Bill Skarsgård scaring Bill Hader on set.
Thanks, Amanda. Horror movies aren't really my thing, but I do like to see what being a teenager was like back then.
Well, Carlos, maybe our teachers can help us answer that question.
Really?
It's hard to believe, but they were once teenagers too. In this segment, we'll get to learn how it was for our teachers when they were growing up. This is a blast from the past.
Take it away, Jada and Kailani.
I am Generation X.
A millennial.
Generation after the baby boomers.
Boomers? Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I was that suspenders kid. I had every color of suspenders, matching shorts, matching shoes.
I wore the big Jinko jeans and like the rocker like ball necklaces and like those big shirts with something weird written on it.
I have never gone with what's on Vogue. I always since a very young age, I always choose styles that fit my figure.
You have a culotte, and that came out a long time ago. What jeans, t-shirts, Converse. What's up, homeboy?
Gnarly.
The as-ifs and whatevers.
Oye, pana, that means like, hey, my friend.
We could say dog.
I think the biggest difference is technology.
We didn't have the internet.
I had to literally go to the actual library and do my research and read all the books and read all the magazines to then, do my paperwork, and everything was handwritten or on the typewriters.
So when I was in high school, like, I remember asking my dad if I could have text messaging because, like, nobody had text messaging. Pagers were still a thing.
I had a beeper.
Pager, it's also called a beeper. It's this little, like, square thing that you would carry around, and people would go to, like, a payphone, and they would be able to, like, type in your number and type you, like, numbered messages.
My generation, respectful, cool, get along with peers.
We weren't too big on everybody gets a trophy. Per se, you guys seemingly get that, like participation stuff, like, hey, they showed up and they get a trophy.
This generation just the opposite. I observe a lot being disobedient, violent, drugs, etc.
My high school experience was pretty interesting. It was very diverse, and I got into a lot of clubs. I got to do a lot of things. I got to travel with the school.
I was in 3 different high schools.
There were racial tensions at that time.
I'm ashamed to say this. I bullied some of the kids.
Go, like, to see football games with the marching band.
Football games, basketball games, that's what I enjoy. And just having fun.
How's that, Carlos? Did that answer your question?
Well, yes and no. I wanted more of a look into the fashion and pop culture of those decades.
Luckily for you, Logan went out earlier this week to do a decades-themed Man on the Streets. Take it away, Logan.
My name is Logan, and welcome to Guess the Decade. Okay, so guess this decade.
90s.
That is from the 1990s.
I don't do a lot of retro gaming. I'm just gonna guess like a 90s.
What decade is this from? I'd say that's the 70s.
70s.
70s. 80s.
1980s.
60s.
Sure?
Yes.
Positive.
Absolutely positive.
The 80s.
80s?
Is that your final answer?
1970s as well.
80s? Is that your final guess? Yeah. Is this the last final one?
90s? Yeah.
That is the 90s.
Thanks for watching Guess the Decade. This is Logan.
Well, that was totally tubular. Thanks for that freaky fresh video.
Okay. Our show's almost over, but before we go, we have one last throwback of the era of dramatic zooms and mustached cops. Kyle, Mariah, and Max present their homage and parody to those classic 80s cops shows. Catchphrase Cops.
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty!
I'm just a cop.
Well, this was a very nostalgic episode. I hope you enjoyed this vintage edition of After the Storm.
That's all for this episode, but if you want to see more McFatter TV content, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at McFatter TV Pro, and check out our new McFatter TV YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Miles, signing off.